That's an old phone number for you. Old telephone exchange name. Ravenswood 10320. Pretty rare, maybe even unique in the 5 boroughs now to see it in neon. The only other one I've seen that I can remember in neon was somewhere Midtown East in the Lexington Exchange. It was a liquor store. Had its LE something number in the window in neon. That's a Ravenswood number. It's the day after I got boosted and I slept like 11 hours. My arm is sore as hell. One of the nurses there asked me if my arm was sore. This was in the 15 minutes that I had to sit and wait for observation. She asked me if my arm was sore. I said no, but she said, well, it probably will be tomorrow. She called that one. But I expected to sleep excessively after this. That's what happened after my first 2 doses. I got the Moderna booster, and that was deliberate because I don't know, the conventional wisdom seems to be that just get whatever booster you can. But I went Moderna because I'd read from seemingly reliable sources that if you got the Pfizer shots for your first doses, which I did, the Moderna amped up your whatever, anti-whatever. I'm going over to see the girl puzzle, which is on Roosevelt Island, which has a whole bunch of school buses lined up. I guess the kids are getting out of school soon. Thinking again about this whole long, strange trip. The conversation I had with my friend who has revealed that he only has one lung, and thus explaining why he was so vigilant. He had good reason to be. And just how different people are. There's that guy, and then there's the other dude I used to know who just only puts himself first, will not get vaccinated, thinks that this is all a big crock of shit, thinks Bill Gates wants us all to die. And I don't know if he ever got vaccinated. I don't care anymore if he did or not. I mean, I don't wish ill on anybody. But if you're not doing this, you're just being a selfish asshole. But I remember, though, the conversation that I had with the friend with one lung. We were talking about who we knew or anyone we had encountered. He I don't think he knew anybody directly that died. He knew some people who got sick, but I don't think he knew anyone who died. That doesn't matter anyway. It got me talking about one of the I don't know if it was strange or what, but one of the encounters I had during March or April, I forget which. I think it was through March and April. I started getting phone calls from a woman. She had found my phone number and website address in a book, a Nebraska travel guide to be exact, a book that I had donated to Salvation Army. Whenever I donate books to these thrift shops, I rubber stamp them all throughout the inside covers and wherever there's a blank space on the inner pages. I made a custom-made rubber stamp with my phone number, website URL, and I don't know. One friend of mine accused me of like using this as a cheap way to get web hits, and that's not the spirit of it at all. I'll never know how many web hits I got, but I do know that I made this connection, and that's the intent. The intent was to leave a trail. Sort of like sometime when I was a kid, they stopped doing this, but when you check books out from the library, you see all the names of people who had checked it out before you, and you'd see how long ago it had last been checked out, and all this little bit of forensic evidence that this book had a trail. And furthermore, it's standard practice to put your name and address in a book. It's like from the library of so-and-so. Many books that you find at thrift shops contain that kind of thing, and I think it's cool. I think it's interesting to be able to make a connection to whoever owned the book before. My only scruple about putting my contact info on it is that usually, if not always, when you find that sort of thing in a book at a thrift shop, it usually means that the person who is named therein had died, because thrift shops are basically treadmills for possessions of the dead. So, like I say, if I have any scruple, it's that people are going to see my name in there and think that I'm dead. And that's never going to be true, because I'm going to live forever. So that was a long, rambling introduction to the fact that when this one woman found my Nebraska travel guide at a Salvation Army, she started calling me because my phone number was printed all throughout. This was March, April, peak COVID, peak quarantine, peak everything, I don't know. And she just couldn't stop talking. She had so much to talk about. I recognized pretty much straight away that this was a catharsis for her. And I recognized my purpose, my function here was to just be there. So she went into almost absurd detail about certain things. In particular, her lover. And with the circumstances of his death, he had COVID in February before anybody knew what it was, or before they knew what it was at least. And he died in her arms, suffocated. She went into a little too much detail, to be honest, about all the shit oozing out of his mouth, and the pus and the drool and all this shit. Well, she talked about him in ways, and she described this guy. He was he did websites, and he was a trained classical pianist and composer. And she said he was a white guy, blonde hair, blue eyes. He sounded so much like me that I couldn't help but ask, where the hell is this all going? I did have thoughts about. She told me where she lived. Down in Murray Hill. That was where she found the Nebraska travel guide at the Murray Hill Salvation Army. And I don't have any problem admitting that I had thoughts of just going over to her place and let's just go at it. Let's get some catharsis here. But at the time, I was heavily engaged with another woman in a virtual long distance thing, and I really had strong feelings for her. I can't cheat on a woman. I'm constitutionally incapable. But she talked about this dude, how they had a grand piano at their in their condo. He would sit at the piano for long hours and either practice or compose, and she would lie on the floor underneath the piano and masturbate. And she said she would do this just for hours and hours. And she really missed that sound and that feeling of being under the piano while he did all that. And we talked about this a few times. And at some point, I realized it was unmistakable that she was masturbating while we were talking. And that was fine with me. And she didn't have to say anything, but she did tell me that she'd been masturbating while we were talking, and she loved my voice, and I've gotten a lot of that ever since I was 13 when my voice changed. People have commented on my voice. And there were a bunch of little miracles about our connection, or to hear her talk about it. Namely, that she was getting ready to move to Nebraska, and she found my book, and she found my name and number, and found the website, and found that I had all these similar qualities of her lover that died in her arms. And then, guess what? One day she just quit calling. I don't even remember her name. The only other connection I can remember, the only other connection I made through this means through rubber stamping the books that I donate, or books and papers and ephemera, that kind of thing. Anything you could put a rubber stamp on. The only connection I've made was more recently. It was interesting if perhaps ultimately for naught. I left a stack of old photos in one of the little free library book drops. And what seems to happen was a woman and her boyfriend, I think I figured this much out about them. They found them. Well, actually, wait a minute. I left them in the little free library outside the Woodside houses, which is a NYCHA complex. And from there, somebody picked them up and then decided they didn't want them, and they dropped them at 30th Avenue and I think she said 35th Street, which is a pretty long way It's probably like 3/4 mile, maybe even longer. So somebody grabbed them and then I guess took another look at what they were and said, I don't want these. These were pictures of from a cemetery. These were pictures of a burial site for somebody. They were old, and there's no way I could have tracked down the original owners. I usually try to do that. Anyway, somebody grabbed them and then dropped them off at 30th Avenue and 30-something Street, and then these two people found them there, and they saw that these were pictures of burial sites and decided that these had to get back to their rightful owner. These were important pictures. These were family heirlooms or whatever. And they went out of their way. They called me. I don't think they emailed me, but I don't think I have an email address on the rubber stamp. But ultimately, they put it in the mail, and they spent a whopping $4 on postage, which is crazy, for just a couple of pictures, and a handwritten letter that said, we found your address on these photos and decided that these had to get back to you. These were important. And I felt bad because their good deed was kind of wasted. These pictures had nothing to do with me, and they're so old that they really don't have any connection to anybody anymore. And I put them out there up for grabs just in the spirit of letting them set sail, not as objects of nostalgia or not as objects of recollection, but as just pieces of art. And I explained all that in my email to them, but they never responded. And like I said, I think they felt they'd wasted their time on this good deed. As far as I know, those are the only two connections that I've made by rubber stamping all those books and ephemera that I drop off at the thrift shops. There's no way to know how many people might have found my websites or anything like that, but I mean, unless anybody contacts me, I have no idea how they got there. Or usually, I mean, oh God, I hate the geese. Look at these creatures. These are nasty, nasty creatures. And they're mean, and they will bite your fucking finger off if you point at them. Just mind my own business, right? I mean, I'm not joking. I was out at the cemetery once. There's thousands of geese out there. I was concentrating on taking a photo of a hawk up in the tree. And I was probably focused on that. And look at all the goose shit they leave. That's all poop. Fucking disgusting crap. I mean, everybody poops, but still. No, but I was out at the cemetery once when I was concentrating on taking a photo, and then after I don't know how many minutes, I looked around, and I was almost completely surrounded. I was like, well, not completely, maybe 2/3 surrounded by geese, and they looked mean. They looked like they were ready to close in, and I backed away. And fuck the geese. I used to know a woman who had a love affair with her geese. That's before I came to hate them. Her stories about geese seemed so quaint. She was like, she could have been an NPR featurette. God, if she talked about that now, I'd be like, just shut up about the geese. Anyway, welcome to Roosevelt Island. I forget if I said this earlier, but I came out here. It's been 2 weeks and a couple of days to see the Nellie Bly exhibit, but I was unaware when I thought it had already opened, but it hadn't, and I was wondering why is it fenced off when it hasn't even opened yet. But I was wrong. It opened the following week. So I'm back, and seagulls are not on my hit parade either. But this one looks good in the sun, though. I think seagulls are pretty gross as well, but they're not going to bite my hand off. I mean, they're rats of the air, as I've heard them described. Look at this, they're on perfect every single post. And a couple in between. I don't get to Roosevelt Island too often. That's the what's it called? It's the rehab facility where, according to my sources, there's like a wall of, I think, 12 payphones. Always comes back to that, doesn't it? But I was given a data set of all the payphones of that are owned by a certain company, and many of them I can't get to. You can't go into hospitals now unless you have legitimate reason, visitation, or you're dying. I think that remains true even now. And I have to ask yet again, are we ever going to get out of this? Is this COVID thing ever going to go away? Approaching the destination here. The girl puzzle. That's interesting what they're doing to the lighthouse. I guess it's something to do with lighting. No climbing on monuments. Well, that's what the hell I came out here to do, was to climb on these fucking things. Just kidding. That's really cool, man. Seriously. This is really neat. I really appreciate this. I guess it's permanent. When I was out here last time, I assumed whatever they were doing with the lighthouse had something to do with the art piece, but it doesn't appear to be the case. I thought they might be installing lighting for this, but that doesn't appear to be the case. I'll see if I can get details. That's what boaters call king of the road. Big ass boat. You just get out of the way if you're in a small vessel. This piece has been here a long time, since 1996, according to the sign. A series of sculptures that are undeniably Tom Otterness. Otterness has a payphone sculpture at the 14th Street subway station, among other things. There's a whole series of works there. But his, depending how you feel about this kind of thing, his charm wears thin when you learn that he once murdered a dog for a stag film that he made. And he never denied it, but it also doesn't seem to have ever affected his career. He still gets 7-figure commissions. And for what it's worth, when he did it, it was legal. I was going to go down to the other end of the island to see the FDR monument, but the sun is just killing me today. And I think I said before that I slept for like 11 hours. So it feels like half the day already disappeared before I got out of bed. The FDR memorial is strange, if you ask me, in a lot of ways. But I'll save all that for if I ever get over there to see it again. I think it was designed and developed in the 1970s and not actually built until like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I don't know, I've seen it twice. All I could think each time was that this is really strange, but more on that later, I guess. To get back to that woman who was calling me in March and April, I think I set the calls. She just stopped calling one day. I think she actually did move to Nebraska. I think she said that in our last conversation, that she was leaving town. But she said so much and she talked for so long that I wasn't always able to retain everything. And talking about the flat earth dude who is convinced that all this COVID stuff is a hoax. I mean, it's enough to make you ask how I was ever friends with that guy in the first place. But that was kind of the thing about us, was he was, if you've been around here long enough, you might remember that I made headlines a few years ago for setting up those Link NYC machines to blast out the Mr. Softy jingle and a bunch of other sounds. But the Softy thing was the big hit. This dude was my only cohort, my only conspirator in this. I mean, I did 99% of everything, but he backed me up a little bit, and we had a lot of fun. So he was the only one in on the secret. But he's, I guess, just a total anarchist. We could not be more opposite in character or lifestyle or anything else. And that's, I guess, I don't know, that was how it worked. That was how we were friends. And he's he is proud of the fact that he doesn't vote. But as I always say, if you don't vote, your politics don't matter. Not to be all high and holy about it, but I stand by it. Anyway, like I say, if we hadn't parted ways already, we certainly would have done so.